coming up with like a solution, yeah, it's easy. It's easy for a lot of people to think about the negatives and to just throw some of those ideas out without doing any factual research, and or maybe just for the idea of to disagree, just to disagree with the whole thing.
Yeah, or you think my group is saying one thing and I need to go with the group.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of situations like that. Like I had a neighbor act like, oh well, you can't even use solar power around here.
Oh yeah, because we know in Michigan we have a lot of cloudy, no sun days.
It's like
Yeah.
It's like, yes, will it work better in the middle of the desert where there's probably better, I want to say better sun, but less clouds, less there's no probably trees to sure.
Yeah.
But it still works here.
Yeah, and I think that what people are gonna think about is they're not gonna equate that the solar panels are not like your only source, that you do have backup, like, because I think that they're gonna take the idea that there's no sun maybe for a week, so my house is gonna have any power.
Yeah, and I keep hearing excuses like they'll say, "Oh, well, it'll never produce enough power to power your house."
Mm-hmm.
That's so not true. I mean, there are factors that go into it, like which way is your house facing, and what kind of exposure to the sun do you have? I mean, do you have trees all the way around, and is your house in shade? Okay, fine. You may have an issue there, but if you have a roof that faces towards the south, and you get sun for the majority of the day on your roof, you can use solar to some extent.
Right.
But even to completely replace, like to go off grid, I think is becoming more and more a reality. If you look at solar power panels right now, the ones that most people will buy for their homes, that you'd find in like any big box, like home improvement store, it's like somewhere between like 20 and 24% efficient. Now they can actually make panels like that are like 35% efficient. That technology is not really mainstream, and it's more like in a laboratory kind of things. But everything starts in a lab. So I feel like we're moving that direction. The panels are getting more and more efficient. They're producing more and more power, and I don't know. Like I go online and I watch reviews of panels or people that want to do what they call like green energy things, and it just feels like where are the doubters getting their information? Like, do they know anyone like that does this? Have they talked to anyone that actually owns them? Have they done any research?
No, because what people will do is that they'll look up and they'll look and say, because they already have it in their mind that solar panels don't work. So they will look up something that says like proof that solar panels are ineffective. Instead of being open-minded and, searching something like, are solar panels beneficial or anything like that, they'll just want to continue that they don't believe it.
Yeah, because I've often thought that at some point, I think I want to live in this area for the rest of my life. Now, whether I want to live in this home or not, that's not, I don't. But I think at some point I'll tear this house down and build a new house. And I've made comments that in the future I'd want solar.
Yeah.
And I'd want some type of battery backup. Now, whether I'm fully off the grid or not, it still remains to be seen, because me building a new house isn't going to happen tomorrow. It'll probably happen in 10, 15 years. But my point is that if you look at the technology that we have today and know that it gets better through time, we have enough technology today that I could go off grid right now in a house the same size as this house. And I think when you tell people that, they think, oh, but then you're going to have to really pay attention to what you turn on and what you have, and everything's going to have to be energy efficient. I think they're missing the point entirely. I think moving forward in time, we are going to use more and more electricity. I mean, if you chart it out and you look throughout history of this country, at least, let's just narrow it down to there. We consume more and more electricity every year going forward. And in the future, we could have, you know, I don't own one right now, but I could have an electric car, or I could have an electric lawnmower, or, you know, maybe someday we all have robots or something. Either way, I think I'm going to be consuming more and more electricity. And I would be looking at setting up a solar power setup that would actually give me more power than I would currently need, knowing that I'm building it for the future. So if I was off grid and I'd already prepaid for that amount of power, I would be less cautious about turning things off or making sure that they're low energy. Because if I had a house like that, one, I know where all the electricity is coming from and it's a green source. And two, I'm not paying anyone for it. I prepaid for this electricity.
Right.
And so what would be the benefit of me like turning a light out when I leave a room? It's not hurting anyone. In fact, turning things on and off are actually harder on things than just leaving them on a lot of times.
So, so a question for you, and I'm gonna play devil's advocate here.
Okay.
So, living in Michigan, you get a home with some solar panels, but in the winter we get a lot of snow.
Yep.
So that's probably a risk right there, because you have electricity on your roof, and now you've got snow and ice.
Well, I wouldn't be worried about the electricity per se. I mean, electricity isn't something that you should be playing with, but the way that they're installed, I don't really think that'll be a factor. I think the bigger factor would be your panels being covered by snow and ice and then not collecting the sun.
So now now there's a safety hazard, because now I have to climb up there and get the snow off, in single digit weather.
Could be. But the other thing is that there are like tools to clean it off on, which are basically like telescoping devices that you can stand on the ground and then just sweep the snow off. But the other thing is that solar power panels actually generate heat. And so unless you had a large snowfall where there was a large amount of snow, which does happen here a couple times a year at least, then unless that was happening, it wouldn't accumulate. Also, as soon as the sun does start to come up, even if you had several inches there, that's where the snow would start melting first. But the deal is like, yes, if they're covered and you do nothing about it, then you won't receive any power. But depending on how the weather works, I mean, depending on what's in the forecast, it could be a scenario where it's like, okay, I could go out there and sweep the snow off, or in a day or two, it's going to be around 30. The sun will be up, the panels will heat up, they'll melt the snow themselves, and then you just have to think about battery capacity, about staying, having enough battery to last you through the time.
Okay. So what about so actually, before I get into that, so is there any type of, because you know how on most cars, you have like your rear window, like the frost lines.
Yeah, I see where you're going with this. Yes, there is a way to cause the panels to heat up, or products that you could install that would automatically melt the snow. Now or ice. The issue with that is that it uses power. So that's something that you would have to do. There would be a trade-off there. But another thing, since I'm close to a lake, another thing that could happen is you could use geothermal power or geothermal heat to heat the panels. So at that point, you'd only be running a pump to like a geothermal well, and then it would just be exchanged with some type of liquid, probably like water with antifreeze or something in it, that would be circulated deep into the ground and warmed up and then ran behind the panels to warm them up. But I didn't mean to dive too far into it, but my point is that everyone's saying that these technologies don't work and
Right.
that this does not happen, and these are the case. And they've been saying the same thing about electric cars, and now they're saying, that they're dirtier for the environment or this or that. And I'm just like, do a little bit of research, because yes, a lot of this technology is newer. And I would say that's probably one of the issues with having misinformation about it, is because maybe you don't know anyone that has solar power or anyone that has an electric vehicle or an electric lawnmower or anything like that. But once it become more prevalent and you start meeting people with that, like we talked before, you guys have an electric snowblower and an electric mower.
Right.
And you were telling me you like the electric mower more than the gas mower, or the electric mower was doing a better job.
Yeah.
And I just think, with a little bit of research, you can find out that these technologies aren't terrible.
Mm-hmm.
They're not. It's not something that you'd have to, I guess, compromise for. In a lot of ways, it could be better.